mentioned science being underpinned. So the way Nietzsche sort of sees science, he looks at science as the corpse of Christianity. So science for him isn't this thing that sort of, like you see religion, like Dawkins puts it, as if religion's this big nasty dragon and it's like it's trying to kill everything, and then you've got the knight in shining armour that just rides over the horizon on his glorious steed, and this is science, and then it runs over and it defeats the dragon, and it's like, yes. And they paint, you get it a lot from these sort of new atheist types, that science is built up as this sort of new being that comes to defeat religion, and it's not that. It's quite the opposite. It is what is left off religion, and they don't see this. And the way Nietzsche describes it, he says, like, listen, the desire for truth, seeing truth as a higher value, is a moral judgment. You have to see truth as good. You have to see truth as something that good people want to attain. These are all moral statements. And this, he's arguing in terms of the Europeans, that they derived this from the Bible. They derived this from the religion. And he says this desire to achieve truth, to look at the world as if it's intelligible, this derived from Christianity as well. In Europe specifically, they saw the world as something that was ordered by a wise being, and not as chaotic. Like the Greeks prior to the Christian West, they didn't see the world in the same way. They saw the world as a very sort of chaotic place, not necessarily something that was intelligible. No, it was quite contrary. Christianity gave rise to this way of looking at the world, this moral drive that pushed them towards wanting to achieve truth. But then it's sort of the sting turns itself against it. Like it's like the bee that stings itself. He says this moral drive that gave rise to the obsession with truth and reason in the West ended up undermining the very system which gave rise to that moral drive, that is Christianity, and so it kills itself.
But Yusuf, people are going to, I can imagine what people are going to say, or atheists are going to say, well, yeah, obviously, atheists can value truth. Yeah, truth is not just something that comes from Christianity. So how is it that you get this moral nihilism from atheism?
Because the question here is it necessary? Why do you need to value truth? Now, within a Christian framework, it's like, well, if you don't value truth, you burn for an eternity. Like in terms of the atheist, it's instrumental now. It's like, well, what is the point of valuing truth if it's just detrimental to me and everyone I know? There is no necessary drive. It's like, it becomes instrumental basically. And yes, there is still the possibility for opening up, but there's no like fear of eternal damnation. It's like, well, if in this world all of the positives lie in a false notion or in a false direction to move towards a lie, then there's very little motivation. If you think of it from a utilitarian perspective, like you move towards the lie, then there's all of this pleasure that derives from it. If you move towards the truth, there's all of this pain and this suffering. Like if you're a utilitarian and you're fixed in the dunya, you're fixed in the world, at what point would you want to continue to value truth there? It becomes, if you don't believe in sort of any justice in an afterlife, it's like, well, why would you keep on to this thing if it's completely detrimental? Like, and that's not to say, obviously there's certain examples where this might be the case, but it's not necessary. It's basically the point. And because there's no fear of an afterlife.
Yeah. So from my understanding is that when you turn around and you ask the question, why should you value truth? A lot of people divorced of a particular religious belief will turn around and say, well, it's beneficial. It's beneficial for human beings. And what you're saying,
it's not always
that's right. So what you're saying is actually, well, okay, if it wasn't beneficial, let's just say it wasn't beneficial just for the sake of the argument, would it be still valuable? And then you're saying, well, it's not valuable anymore. So then truth is only valuable based upon various benefits. And then you can give examples. And I think even Donald Hoffman, who's a professor in neuroscience and philosophy of science, He talks about this idea that evolution adapts to survival, not adapts to truth finding. So, he gave a particular mathematical model in which he demonstrated how an organism that is able to see reality as it is less likely to survive than an organism that's more adapted to survival, even if it's less correlated to truth. So truth finding is not necessary for organisms and human beings in order to have benefit. And so his argument is how we see the world is not really how the world is. It's just how we've evolved to perceive it, as like a user interface of the world. So truth therefore becomes something that's not even valued as a necessary thing, as you mentioned, Yusuf. And if that's
I
the
think
case,
if I could just if I could just add to that, Sharif, the idea that truth, like the truth seeking and why we ought to seek truth, right? Is it's not that for the nihilist or for Nietzsche. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's that it restricts you, right? So the idea is that the problem when you guys seek truth, it's going to take you to this conclusion that these mythologies are false, right? That there is no truth, there is no ultimate truth in the world that gives us meaning. And that conclusion, if truth does matter, you should follow the implications of that truth, where it leads you to, and you should become a nihilist and just, and it's going to take you to very bad places. That I think was Nietzsche's idea, and that's why truth wasn't the priority for him, right? So for him, it was like, okay, truth matters, but as Yusuf put it, in like a instrumentalist manner, like as far as it helps you,
useful,
achieve your drives, right? Achieve your desires, and but that has serious implications for morality, for example, right? And it is at the end of the day, like there's, in terms of cosmic nihilism, right? Which is an extreme version of existential nihilism. That does have a huge psychological implication on humans, right? The fact that your existence is utterly meaningless on a cosmic scale.
If it's meaningless on a cosmic scale, why would you even value meaning of truth and morality on an individual scale?
Yeah. The idea is that the existentialist tries to get out of this by saying that you guys are ignoring the subjective aspect of meaning. It's subjective. Why should it be relative to the cosmos? But then the problem is you're going to be going in circles again. You're back where you started. You're again going to create this meta narrative. You can't. However, you are going to try to create meaning, you will create this story, this mythology about why a certain truth matters. Like, for example, why happiness matters, and you are going to stick to that as some kind of transcendent truth. And the issues you're going to face, if you're concerned with metaphysics and truth, the difficulty of validating such meaning on a materialistic world. I mean, a lot of people have attempted to do that. I don't want to like strawman or oversimplify their position, but in my view, I think it's very difficult to make it work. Well, I mean, it's one of two options. You're either going to say it's a useful fiction, or you're going to try to just make some kind of ad hoc assertion that it's just they're just like what some materials do with consciousness, that it's just an emergent property with no further explanation required whatsoever. So morality is just supervenient on the physical, and we could just call ourselves non-reductive physicalists and non-naturalists in that sense. So excuse me again. So the problem, that's I think the problem. It's not that truth doesn't matter. It's that truth is going to lead us to this, this skepticism, right? This nihilism about the world, right? There's no ultimate meaning, and I think that is the fundamental presumption that Nietzsche has.
I just want to add on what you said there. So this idea of it being restrictive is a really, really important point. So it's like when it comes to someone, because Nietzsche's whole process was basically there's going to be this the destroying of the status quo in terms of what the values are in society, and then the society would have to go through this process of a reevaluation of values. Now, in that reevaluation, truth doesn't have to be valued. if you find it something restrictive, then you can continue to build a new value system where truth doesn't play a part in it, and that you don't have to. Maybe because you don't like the things that come out of that. That people don't, for example, this idea that, and we need to touch on this as well. That why, if there's a cosmic nihilism, does that necessarily entail existential nihilism on like a personal level? And the reason is like, if you want to feel meaning in an authentic manner, it becomes impossible when you understand that, or you've come to an understanding where you see the world as nothing but being on the foundational level, just empty matter. There's no conscious push. It's all random atoms hitting each other. It's all chaos. It's all absurd. If you've got this notion of the absurd at the foundation of everything, any meaning that you build on top of that becomes necessarily an act, like child's play, like the children on the playground when they're playing make-believe. You can't, that's always at the back of your head. And if it's at the back of your head, unless you build a wall between you and it, then you can't play with meaning in an authentic manner.